Alhamdulillah, today on a lovely day, it's nice and shiny outside, the sun's out, and I'm sure everybody is moving around on this day, maybe at work, maybe out shopping, maybe enjoying the break and the holiday, but definitely we are tuned in, hopefully, and listening. Today's a special day because our program today is the education show. That's right, with me, Khalid Patel, and we have some studio guests today, and the whole theme is about education. And the title is quite interesting, The Day in a Life of a Teacher. That's right. Teachers, we all been through them, even ourselves and everybody around us, somewhere along the line in our life, we have experience with a teacher. And the amazing thing is, teachers will always say this, that we have thousands and hundreds of students, so it's very hard sometimes to remember every single student. But the student will always remember the teacher. That's right. If any ex-students out there are listening, I will ask you to text in on 077 488 55055 and for a shout out. And at the same time, teachers out there, wherever you might be, do join into the program, and anybody else involved in education. We have got some studio guests, which I'm going to go through very soon. We've got somebody online later on coming on. We're just waiting for that link also. But in the meantime, let us just introduce ourselves. So we're going to just say who we are. So first of all, I'll start with everybody. My name's Khalid Patel. I've been in education for a good 25 years or so teaching. And then through there, the different responsibilities of a teacher, you will find that we've had experience of being form tutors and heads of years and looking after a whole year group. We've had the opportunity for many years for looking after a whole department and a whole team of facilitators within the subject, and also at the same time experience of senior leadership and governance in different schools and consultancy in subject related material across Leicestershire and South Nottingham. So that's me. And many students out there, the other day I did another program and a student rang in. I was well chuffed to hear their voice and they said, "Sir, it's me." Okay, and you'll find this everywhere you go. A lot of times you're going to a restaurant or a takeaway or to city centre or even abroad, you will always find a student coming up, "Hello, sir, it's me." And you're trying to work out, who's this? What's this student called? Because there's so many of them. Anyway, that's me. Next, we have got Daljinder Padam, and he's going to say who he is.
Well, that's my name, Daljinder Padam, as Khalid said, and I've been a teacher a little longer than Khalid, although I look very young. It's
Definitely.
Yeah, I didn't even calculate it, but it's at least 35 years I've been a teacher, so it's a long time. And started off, I did a maths degree, but I don't teach maths anymore, and somewhere along the line I was into philosophy and ethics and ended up an RE teacher, but now I'm an assistant principal and loving that job as well. But I love teaching, I love the classroom. I'm sure Khalid will ask questions later on. When I'm in the classroom, I love that dearly as well. So it's a joy, it's a tough job, but those who love it, it's more than a job for them, and some of the things will come out through that. Great.
Excellent, thank you for that. Then we'll move on to our Zoom link, who's far away from here, the studio here. We've got Brian. Hello, Brian. We're just doing a round robin who we are, so you want to just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, morning, Khalid. Morning, Daljinder.
Morning.
Yeah, my name is Brian Khalid. I'm a principal at a school in Leicester of approximately 1,050 children. A job I've done for nearly 8 years now, which I really enjoy. The job's an absolute privilege. I'm working in the school is a great place to work, a great community to serve. Lots of challenges, lots of work to improve and try and do better for our children. But it's a great job, and it's a great group of people I work with. So I'm very privileged. I've always enjoyed teaching. I'm a maths teacher. And before that, I was head of maths, and I was a vice principal at another school. And I've taught for 35 years now, and pretty much enjoyed every day of that, really. It's a great job with so much to recommend it, really.
Thank you for that. Sorry, Brian, where in the country are you, by the way?
I'm in London at the moment. I'm at my mum's house in London because it's the Easter
Excellent.
holidays.
What's
So
the
it was a
weather
bit
like
of
down there?
Sorry, it's warm today. Actually, I went for a run earlier, and it's very hot.
Excellent, excellent. We're a bit jealous here. We need a bit more heat here. Right, so next we've got the next guest. All yours?
Assalamu alaikum. Nice that you've left me right at the end with three of you that have got a lot of experience, and then there's me. So my name's Nur Muhammad Tayyib. I've been teaching since 2014. When I've heard you guys, it seems like my experience is very little. But I started off at De Montfort University, so I studied business information systems, which is a bit of business in ICT, and then from there I went to do my postgrad, so PGCE, which was at Nottingham-Trent, and then from there I went into teaching, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And currently I'm a head of computer science. Sorry, I am a computer science teacher, and I also am teaching a teaching and learning coordinator at my school I'm at.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So, dear listeners out there, we are listening to Ramadan Radio 87.7 FM. If you want to join in the program, the telephone number, is 0116 482 2086. And text in also that you are listening out there, 077 488 55055. It's interactive. The audience is together. This is one big classroom. Yes. This is we got all teachers here, so I've got to say that this is one big classroom, and yes, you're all really well behaved and star students out there. Let's see how you get along. Who can answer the best questions ever? So the lines are open, and you can text in on that number. My dear colleagues, teachers, wherever you are listening, also give us a shout out that who is listening from the teaching profession and the education profession, wherever you are also. So let's get on because time is whizzing on here. So I'm just going to run through a few points of discussion, and we're just going to talk about this, hopefully. And the whole purpose is this, that first of all, we realize the value of a teacher, because it has immense impact, because I said earlier on that the student will always remember the teacher. Every little action that a teacher does, whatever they say, whatever they do, the student will remember. And later on in life, they will recall that, and they will say, my teacher used to say this. And that's quite a common sentence you might hear. So let's have a look. So first of all, why a teacher? Daljinder.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because originally I wanted to be an architect, which my daughter has become. And then after that, my art wasn't quite good enough. I thought I'd become an engineer, and which is my son has become that. And then finally I ended up in maths. But I really loved being with people. I wanted a job being with people. And I loved young people and their energy, and so that's what I tried it out as a sort of part-time thing, and for a jury service, and I loved that. It was hard work, but I knew I could do the job, and I've never regretted that decision. I know some people have come out of teaching, but that's never ever been a thought in my mind.
Brian, what's your view on this? So why did you go into the teaching profession and your route that way you are now?
Yeah, slightly similar to Daljinder in some ways. My degree was civil engineering at Leeds University, which I quite enjoyed, but probably wasn't the profession for me. I did some voluntary work in my second year at university, which was working in a youth club with some children, and also teaching a bit of English to some new arrivals from Vietnam. So I did those two things, and from that I worked on a summer camp in the United States. At the end of my second year at university, and I just really enjoyed that. I ended up on a camp for special needs children, and I no knowledge, no experience of that at all. But it was just I learned a lot that summer, and it was just a wonderful summer. The travel as well as the working with children, but also being part of a community that's working together to support children. That was a big part of the draw to it, and I met some wonderful people. I worked with some great children. As I say, I went over there with probably not enough knowledge for the level of need that was there in the camp. But I learned a lot, and people very patient and taught me a lot, and came back knowing that I wanted to be a teacher. And then at the end of my degree, then applied for teacher training in Leicester. So yeah, and you know, never regretted that decision. Always found the job challenging, interesting, developmental. You know, I've always enjoyed working with children. The challenge that brings, the energy, the sense of satisfaction when you support them and you're able to move them on, or when they're able to do that for themselves. You know, it's a job that is very rewarding and brings you an awful lot, I think.
I think a common theme I'm seeing here is the word enjoyment. And I think everybody is saying the same words, the enjoyment. And it is a day is never the same. A class is never the same. Every single day, every single lesson, every single situation is different. So you could, in fact, say it's never boring because it's so much excitement, so many things happening, and it's constant. And you think things that you never thought would happen. And as you say, it's very, very rewarding, and you see how the students develop. Just thinking back on myself, I remember before teaching profession, I used to have a consultant and a business. So you sell a product, you get a bit of profit, and okay, that's your satisfaction. But here you're investing in a child, and the student develops and he progresses, and you've had an impact on that child. That is the most rewarding thing a person can feel, because you've had an impact on a person's life, and a life forever. And many of those students you'll find move on in life. For example, at our school, we're at, some of the students that we've taught are teachers themselves today, or heads of years, for example. So it's so rewarding to see that and individuals move on. I'm going to move to Noor to a slightly different perspective now. We're going to do a bit of an X-ray vision. We're going to visualize and think a typical day of a teacher. Noor, what happens? Come on, from the morning you wake up, what's going to happen?
I think excuse me, what summed up was the fact that you said each day is different. That you don't walk into school knowing that yesterday is going to be the same as today. So a day for a teacher consists of, so my starting day starts from 8:30. I walk in, and on this year's been slightly different at our school, where we don't have home class every single day, so we have it staggered. So it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So every Monday I have my home class, which start at 8:30. Kids start coming in. That's a bit of pastoral work. And then from there, from 9 o'clock, that's where I have my 6 lessons from 9 till 3. And each year group, each group is different. Each student is different. That level of planning, that level of workload, that level of interaction, how you work with those particular students. And each student that walks into the room, you never know what to expect. So you have some students that might have a really good day at home, and that filters in when they come into school, or you might have some kids that have had a really bad weekend or something that's happened at home, and then that filters through into school, and it affects not just their work rate, but their mentality, their physical well-being, their mental well-being, and it just takes a toll. And having to manage that on top of your planning, your workload, your results, and encompassing all that into making something meaningful and good enough for the students to progress. So, like I said, each day is different. And I think what you guys said sums it up, was the reward, seeing that what the students get at the end of the year makes it all worth it in the end.
Sorry, Daljinder, coping and time management. How does one, manage that planning and delivery and marking and progress and feedback and inclusion and leadership, all that together? How do you do it?
Lots of lists, Khalid, lots of lists. Come to my desk and you'll see lists, and I love the tick. And so it needs, I literally plan every week what I'm going to do, and then every day I break that down and just go through that as well. So, and then you just can't plan everything, because you have the crises that comes, like Noor's just said, a child that's had a problem, and you have a lot of those that intervene all the time, that stop what you want to do. So some days you do nothing on your list. It's just dealing with other things. But it's, you just work through that. But good planning. The one thing I know we're going to have to talk about, a career in teaching, is they've got to be good, well organized, well planned. And with that, it'll become good. So, yeah.
Just out of interest, because that's one of the other prompt questions from here, is that how do you go into the teaching profession? What are the routes of going into teaching?
Okay, one of my jobs in my school at the moment is I'm what's called the ITT coordinator. So I coordinate all the training teachers that are coming through. So we work with lots of the universities, particularly Leicester, but like Nottingham, where Noor's come from, Coventry, Birmingham, all of these, we work with them all, and what's called a skip provider. So they're the normal routes where you first get a degree, and then you do what's called your PGC towards your qualified teacher status. So that would be the normal way, but there are many ways that are slightly opening out. We have lots of people who don't have a degree, and they're finding new ways, new possibilities that are coming through right now. It's sort of apprenticeship type thing. So yeah.
And you can go into the teaching profession at any point, right? You don't have to be like, for example, you've just done your A-levels and degree, and that's the only point. There are different points you can come in, because I do believe that you can be a mature student or in a complete different profession and you move into teaching.
Yeah. Most of the trainees that come in are in their 20s that we have. But after COVID, and we did a lot of lockdown learning, and a lot of you parents who are listening to me, you probably had to do some teaching as well. And because of that energized some staff and some parents, and they wanted to try to become teachers. So about 2 years ago, we had quite a lot of mature students in school trying to train as teachers as well. So, and you'd normally get a few as well. So of course, it's open to everybody, and some older people could make a great job, because you've now become a parent. You've gone through a system. You're not coming in new. You've got some experience behind you. Yeah.
So Brian, we've got Noor here. We're just talking about he's got to plan a lesson and deliver a lesson. How would the school make sure that the quality of the lessons and the teaching and learning is of the best standard, which is expected?
I think that's a really good question, Khalid. It's key to a successful school, because the teacher doesn't work in isolation, and it's unfair to just expect the teacher to come in and deliver it on their own. And I think how the school frames that is key to our success. The success is about us as a team of staff, not any individual. I think there's a couple of things that the school does. First of all, it's about the culture the school creates. That includes student care, student behaviour, those aspects of the school, and they're critically important. That everything in the school is well planned, from how we work, how we staff our corridors, how we do lunch times, how we do break times, how we do entry into the building. All of that is controlled is the wrong word, because that sounds a bit draconian, but it's planned to make the environment very ordered, very pleasant, very safe for students, so that students arrive at the door of the classroom feeling it's a safe environment. I'm going to learn here. I'm going to be well looked after. I think the school's got a duty to have really good behaviour management systems, so that students know that behaviour in the lessons will be good. They'll be supported to do that. If there's problems with behaviour, they'll be addressed. I think staff need to know that as well, because there's nothing worse for staff morale and staff how staff perceives the job than if students aren't behaving well. And I think all schools have got a duty to put systems in place that support staff and staff feel confident in, and staff will buy into, so that all staff are singing for the same hymn sheet. And any teacher will tell you it's about consistency, that the children feel things are consistent from one room to another, that any school expectations, for example, when a teacher's talking, you're silent, you sit and listen. When you've been set homework, you do your homework. Those type of expectations. Fairly simple stuff. That the school has got the procedures in place to support those and ensure those happen. And that allows the teacher to focus on delivery then. Because if those things are in place, the children will be well behaved. They'll be receptive to learning. They'll feel calm. They'll feel safe. They'll feel the environment's right for learning. And most children desperately want to learn, particularly post-COVID. Children definitely desperately want to learn. They want to do well. And I think it's a school's leadership's job to put those conditions in place so that teachers can be successful and work well, and to look after the staff as well. We hear an awful lot about workload and well-being, and absolutely right. Those things are crucial. That when the staff feel they've got a life as well as teaching, and it is possible to do that. And I think perhaps the profession lost sight of that 10, 15 years ago, and is getting that back now, that idea that actually you come into teaching, you can have a decent work-life balance. You're not going to have to work, a ridiculous number of hours. We can deliver a really good curriculum in a really good school and keep people in the profession. Daljin mentioned that earlier about roots into the profession. Well, really important that we retain our staff, that staff want to stay, want to work in the school. And I think a successful school does retain its staff because the environment in there is it's good for staff, it's good for students, and if those two things are correct, it will be good for learning as well, along with good quality training and very high expectations of what students can achieve. I think you put those things in place, children will do very well. I'm not saying they're easy to put in place, and you need all your staff on board for that. You need everybody working together and pulling together in the same direction. But you get those things in place. I think you create conditions where a member of staff walks into the classroom and they can teach, and it's not what they're doing is consistent across the school with what other staff are doing as well.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate the words there. One of the things in there is the support mechanism, because you're not on your own. A teacher is not on their own. They've got the support from all sides, and that's crucial for the well-being. I've just got a message here that's come through. At my school, we plan daily. Our planners have to show a reflection of how the lesson went and then what needs to be implemented for next lesson, i.e. any missed learning, seating plans, lesson structure. This is only because of the type of students we have. Special needs students there. Actually, that teacher, I know, I'm not going to mention the name, but actually, that's one of the ex-students anyway. That's just messaged, and thank you for listening there. But that's right. You reflect, we adapt our lesson plans accordingly, and that reflection is key. When a student goes to PGC, a trainee teacher, you'll find that every day they are told, you have a logbook, have a reflection, and that's maintained throughout. And once a teacher is a fully qualified teacher, you'll find that daily, weekly, annually, reflection is always there, because you reflect, you adapt, and you refine and fine-tune the lessons, and making sure that we're making progress. So, and it's making an impact on students' lives. So just going back on the behavior. So Noor, in your lesson, you walk in, and then everybody settled down, and one student just decides to cause complete mayhem. What happens then? Panic or get angry, or what do we do?
Call 999.
If only.
No, it's hard, and I think the word that Brian was mentioning was being consistent, and having that support mechanism from your school, and having that support initially that's been set up is primarily because of the school itself and the foundation that being built. And you as a teacher, so for me, for instance, if a student has engaged in being quite confrontational, dealing with him or her in a professional manner, being able to put it in the bud. So there would have to be a system in place, and that system comes through the school that you work at, and each school will be different. So for instance, the school that I'm at, we have a behavior policy put into place, and the last resort would be on calling the student, where they would be taken away from the lesson and taken away from the lesson, especially when they're disturbing the other kids in that lesson and affecting their learning. So for me, for instance, if a kid was to behave quite negatively, I would give them a warning, and then from there what I would do is moving the student to a different seat in the classroom. Then third, I would probably ask the student to leave and have a quiet word with that individual and ask them about the behavior and see how what's being affecting them, if it's maybe a group of people around them. There's a number of different factors, and on-calling the student is always my last resort. I don't like to on-call students because there's a number of different factors that might be in play, something that I may not be aware of, and something that might be hindering their performance or affecting their working capability, and I just need to factor all that into place and understand what the student is actually going through before I make that call or judgment in on-calling that student. Last resort, which is very rare for me, I do tend to on-call. I don't really tend to on-call, but it's removing that student away from the classroom, especially if they are affecting the learning of others. And especially for me, for my head of department. So in the school I'm at, my head of department, and as a team, I've said that if a student has been quite disruptive, we do have the option instead of, if you don't want to on-call that student, to maybe remove them and put them into another class where they're away from any distractions.
A change of environment makes a big difference, because there's so much of a baggage behind each and every student. And that's the challenge for a teacher. not only just delivering the curriculum and the content and the subject area, but more importantly also understanding how this child learns, and also further to that, understanding what is behind this child, what is the background of this child, what are the external influences on the child. And there's so many. Daljinder, so if it doesn't work in the classroom, it's going to move on, and I presume the pastoral team is going to jump in here. What happens then?
Yeah, it's very much like Brian said earlier on. It's a team. So even though you're on your own in a classroom teaching and delivering your lessons, behind the scenes there's a team, and that will support you. So if you look at Noor's cases, any one of those disciplines he'll have done, but it's definitely the on-call where the student's taken out, gets referred on to what's called our pastoral team. And so we have a year group and a leader who will try and get to know the students, their background, and then their form teachers as well. On top of that, we have assistant pastoral leaders as well, and they really, they're experts at the behavior of the student. They'll be contacting parents. They'll know there could be a death in the family, there could be something that happened, they will know of that. And so they'll know, is this a regular occurrence, or is this a one-off? And working together like that, we really move forward very well. And our vast majority of our students really appreciate that there's a team of people outside their family who love and care for them as well, and that really produces the best for them in the school environment. So discipline can also be a form of love and care.
That's right. And guess what? What if that doesn't work? Then is it the headmaster's office? Brian, does it come to you then? I remember in the past many years ago when I was a child, when things were quite different, you had to go into the headmaster's office, and there was other forms of sanctions. Things moved on from then, but there was other forms of sanctions in those days. So what happens? It's gone to the head now, or it's gone to that far that it's not worked, or whatever the pastoral team's done, and it's not really working there. What happens then, Brian?
Yeah, I mean that can happen. Hopefully not too often, but that can happen. That it's the pastoral team have tried their best. They've done everything. They've certainly involved parents. We haven't really spoken about parents, and parents will be brought in, and we'd speak to parents at the same time and work out if there was anything else going on, or work out if it was just a child misbehaving. You know, it can just be a child misbehaving on that day. So we'd have worked with parents. We'd have put support in place. The child would have been on report for a period of time. It might be that will normally work. We also you might decide that there's counselling needs or safeguarding issues might become apparent, and those children will be supported through those, or medical needs might be identified. So all of that could happen, and we'd intervene at those various levels, and senior staff would be involved in that. If none of that worked, and there didn't appear to be any underlying issues, I mean, you might sadly reach a point where a child might go on what's called a managed move from the school. That would be senior staff involved with that. So that's when maybe the situation in the school has reached a point where relationships are broken down and the child needs a fresh start, not permanently excluded, but just a fresh start in another environment. And schools across Leicester come together. We have a list of children that we say, well, perhaps this child needs a fresh start. We work with parents on that, and we'll give a child a managed move in another school. So that would be a period of 6 weeks or 12 weeks where they tried out another school, and quite often that works. I mean, at my school we do very few of those, but we do an occasional one, and we have children in from other schools, and that often works. The child will settle down, that they actually want a fresh start themselves. Often they've got into patterns of behaviour or relationships with other students that they can't pull out of. They can't change their behaviour in that context. So actually giving them a new context, sometimes they're desperate for that, because they want to behave, they want to do well in their exams, and they want to settle down. And often that sort of that change, often at sort of during year 9, maybe beginning of year 10, is exactly what a student needs, and that managed move works. I mean, the other alternatives, if that doesn't work, there's things like alternative provision, where we would provide some of the student's education in a different environment. So they would maybe do some exams in school, but they would do some vocational work in another setting. And there's settings across the city that can provide that. We'd obviously be looking very carefully about the quality of that and how good what the students were getting. And we would be working with the families to try and put together a package of support that would make that work. And sometimes the student will go out for a short period of time and do that and then come back in. So there's different behavioural provision across the city that we can access to try to support our students to get better if they've slipped into negative patterns of behaviour. So that's the sort of thing senior staff and myself might work on. At the very top of that is a permanent exclusion, where a school really reaches the end of the line, and it can't go any further, and that is the student is completely removed from the school. Thankfully, that's very rare. I mean, it's a few years since I've done one of those, and I'm desperately sad if I ever reach that point. But that sanction is there if it's needed, and it's usually for the most serious things. The things that would put either staff or students at risk or something like that. So it's the most serious sanction. Very rarely used because we're looking at a whole set of interventions before that to support students and their families to avoid getting into that situation.
Thank you for that, Brian. So in this, we can see, dear listeners, that it's all about the student, and all the support mechanisms are working towards that the student progresses and becomes a better citizen and becomes successful in the future. And the teachers are the facilitators for this. And that's why it's such a crucial job and such a rewarding job, as you can see. And definitely, without a doubt, you'll enjoy it. Once you start going into there, you'll find it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And every day is different. And we have many funny moments. And I'm actually going to pose this question to the panel here. Try and think of a funny moment over 35 years of experience there we've got here. So let's have a look. Can you, Noor, I'll start with you. Can you think of any funny moments in the classroom? You don't have to be name anything, but just generally for the audience out there.
That's a difficult question
Okay.
with my limited experience. But I've had every day is funny. So I have a group of students that make me laugh if I'm having a really bad day, or if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, I guess. Walking into the school, the kids every day put a smile on my face, and it's really nice to see. But I've had some really sweet moments. So in my first or second year of teaching, and actually funny enough, last year also, I remember my year 11s at the time, I was walking in, we were going to do a revision lesson, and they asked me to come out because there was apparently an incident. And when I walked out the room, they had set up the table and they asked me to come in, and then they had a cake put up for me with my name. So it was really quite sweet. And then last year I had a group of students that also did a similar sort of gesture. And I think you can see in the kids' eyes and in their persona and how they are and how they react with you and how much they appreciate. And like you said, learning for them never ends, and learning for us or me as a teacher also never ends. So I think I'm learning about myself and learning about my students as well, and see how I can make a better teacher.
Khalid?
Yeah, it's much harder a question than you could imagine, but
the whole of 35 years is just flowing by now.
My brain's going all over the place. So, but yeah, in a previous school we did. A boy was always saying, I'm faster than you, sir. I'm boasting away like this. So I said, let's do a race. Let's have a race. I guarantee I'll win. And they, oh, no, sir, you'll never win and all this. We went out ready for a race. And unless you work in school, you won't understand this. I think half the school turned up. I don't know how they all knew. This was just an individual conversation. And it's just, I don't know. This was well before texting and social media. There's another media that students use, I'm sure of it. I don't know about it, but I'm sure it exists. And so half the school turned up ready with a race. And so we got ready, steady, go, bang. And I tripped the boy up straight away and then ran and won him. And so the whole school were for me. And it was always, Mr. Padam's faster than so-and-so. And it was a great moment. But to be honest, I'm in this job because every day there's something funny that happens. You work with young people, something funny will happen every day. That's the joy. So, yeah.
Before you carry on, I want to ask, did you get a certificate?
Loads of certificates, loads of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Good old sports day also. Eh? Brian, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Daljinder says. Every day is funny when you work with young people. And also, I think the adults that come in to work in schools, both teachers and support staff, tend to be nice people. You tend to be working with groups of people that you like, you enjoy. I've worked in about 6 schools, and in every one of them felt close to staff, to other staff. So that tends to breed a lot of humour and a lot of funny situations. So there's an awful lot of it. I mean, I pick out at my current school, we have, when year 11 go after the exams, we have a nice leaves assembly after all the exams are finished, and they come in and they're dressed up, and we just do some funny things. So I mean, the best one is very simple. We put their pictures up of them when they're in year 7, and you know, that creates such hilarity from the students. You know, that they're you know, that they just enjoy that. I'll mention one funny situation though, and it's fairly recent, and we had a small problem in school. It doesn't sound like much of a problem. Children were bringing in water pistols. It's quite old-fashioned, isn't it? And it was only tiny little water pistols. They would shoot just the tiniest bit of water, but they were a right pain. So, but we found out who had them. We thought there's going to be a few water pistols that morning. So we stopped this group of students, and when we got them into the dining room, we said, look, we know about the water pistols, you're going to have to give them to us. And we took the water pistols, and it was actually 22 little water pistols came in that day. So we took a bag full of water pistols from them that day, and we were all trying to, you know, be serious and keep a straight face, but it was just very funny. It's a bit old-fashioned, like an old-fashioned comic book, you know, taking water pistols off children. But that was I
can imagine. I can imagine. I know you're going to turn down and think, go on, what about yourself? So I'm just thinking, one day I remember going into the classroom, and 2 situations happened. One day, I walked into the classroom, and all of a sudden, the students sitting on the chair, and next day, they've disappeared. Okay, I'm sure he was sitting there a minute ago. And then what happened after a short while, he's lying on the floor. I goes, are you okay? What's wrong? I'm okay, sir. I'm just angry. Like, why are you on the floor? Can you get up? He goes, no, you're the one who advised me a long time ago. If you get angry, sit down. If you're sitting down, if you get angry, lie down. So I'm just lying down. I'll be angry. I go, okay. And I just found it a bit hilarious. And another time, I remember one student, year 7, walking in, and he walked and he's going, bang, 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 bang. What are you doing? He's going like that. I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm playing Fortnite. Apparently, he played all night. It was Call of Duty, actually, and he was playing, and then he came with that mindset, and he came into the classroom, year 7. This was quite a few years ago, right at the beginning, and I just found it so amazing and a bit funny also, because the way he was acting and whatever else. So these occurrences happen. It is a show, definitely. A classroom is the show, but within that, we are the facilitators as teachers, and we're making sure that they're making progress. And with all this, you know, what's happening is that learning is being shared out, and students are becoming individuals. And those very students later on in life become doctors, pilots, well, you know, dentists. You see it all over the years. You know, we've seen from our schools that those individuals have moved on. And in school, there was that challenge. In school, you know, those students did get on call, or detention, whatever else. And those students did take that extra time, but then they've moved on in life. And that's the impact of it all, that, yes, I have an impact on this child, and it made a difference. That's why it's such a virtuous job, such a valuable job. And really, definitely, you have to enjoy it. I know there's stress there, and there's pressures there, and there's a lot of external pressures also, because the scenario is constantly changing. For example, we had COVID, big difference. We're not going to even talk about that, or how that transpired and the impact it had on schools and individuals. But teachers coped, students coped, staff coped, and they moved on. And we got through the 3 or 4 years, whatever else, and we're moving on. And you've got the exam pressures on the other side, where outcomes, this constant pressure that making sure that students do well and achieve to their best. And on the other side, we've got Ofsted, making sure that, you know, everybody's doing their job to the correct manner. So all these pressures are there. And there's a lot of stakeholders within the school. You've got the governors, and you've got the parents and the students and the staff and the support staff, and all this comes together as one big family. And that's what it's all about. Now I'm just going to finish off now with a few more points here. We need teachers, and we need more professionals out there in the teaching profession. What advice would we give? Noor, you're the advertising person, you're the sales rep for the teaching profession. What are you going to tell everybody out there?
The holidays are great. I'm on holiday.
Sorry, paid holidays.
Paid holidays, exactly, paid holidays. Huge. So I know we're short on time, but just quickly, I think taking the feedback from my parents initially started me off. So I think my mom was a huge driving force for me in going into my career, and I've never really told her. So I think listening to your parents, listening to people around you, and I think the advice I would give to any individual that's listening out there, I know it's difficult, I know it's hard, I know it can be time consuming, I know some may claim, oh yes, we don't get paid as much, and which is true, and I know the teachers who are listening may agree or may have a little bit of a rant about it right now, but I think go for it. The difference that you make in the kids' life and seeing that change and seeing them later on in life as they grow up, coming up to you and thanking you is a huge achievement. And I don't know about anyone else listening, but for me, for instance, I still remember all my secondary school teachers and the impact that they've had, having that lasting impact. That's something that I want to be remembered for.
Daljinder,
yeah,
we're going to say.
Sure. One of the things I think without doubt is I consider it as a job. I don't even consider myself as a teacher anymore. I consider what I do is I change lives. And that's really my job. We just change so many lives. And as Noor says, when you get to my age, you meet the lives you've changed and you've seen what the impact you made on their lives. And I've seen too much of that to realize it's a fantastic job. You literally are giving aspirations for people, and you'll see them later on with their family, and they thank you so much for that. That might be 20 years later on, and I've seen too much of that to realize how important my job is. And for those of you who are thinking about that, you really will transform lives from young children to fantastic citizens of our nation.
Brian, we got literally 1 minute. Any more advice from yourself?
Yeah, I think Noor and Daljinder have said it brilliantly. You know, the job's a privilege. It's you know, to support young people developing and change lives, as Daljinder says, is an absolute privilege. Absolutely right about the pay. The pay should be higher. Education should be better funded. Even within that, though, you know, the job is fantastic. If you're up for that sort of challenge and working in a great school community, you know, please come and give it a go. You won't regret it.
There you are, folks. So any final messages from the listeners out there? Any texts on 0774 8855 055 or a quick phone call before we finish on 0116 482 2086. A bit of feedback from yourselves also would be brilliant. You're with the Education Show. We've got another one next week also. Today we talked about the day in a life of a teacher, and I hope we had some sort of how would you say, scenario in our heads and a vision that what a teacher goes through and how rewarding it is and how much of a need there is to be a teacher. But next week we'll be talking about the barriers and challenges in the teaching profession. Generally, that's going to be quite interesting because there are a lot of, obviously, difficult decisions to make and a lot of challenging situations that the education system is going through and will always go through. So, dear listeners out there, wherever you are, next week again at the same time, we'll have the Education Show and we'll be talking about that. And I hope you join in for that also. So today, what have we got from this? That yes, teaching profession is absolutely brilliant, very virtuous. It is hard work, but it's all worth it. We make an impact on the child. Quick here. Assalamu alaikum. There's a lot of messages here. The impact, we need more people working in the criminal justice profession. That one message there. Okay. But that will only happen when you go through a good schooling system, by the way. So whatever profession we are going to go through, yes, the fundamentals is that at school we do well. So that is why it's very, very important that the environment of a school has an impact on our lives, and this is facilitated by the teacher. One of the things I remember, just going to finish off with, is that when I was employed, I was told, Khalid, you've been employed as a role model. So that's why each and every teacher out there is a role model. Whatever the teachers will say and do, we are being role models to the students, and students hopefully pick this up and they will take this in their lives and hopefully make a difference in the world. And it's all about making that difference. The teaching profession, students, collectively, everybody together, the whole education system is to make a difference in the